Hi, welcome to the video. I wanted to explain my journey from using digital tools such as Apple Notes and moving to using Commonplace books, which is a term that I heard first last year, I believe, from Carroll, who's a YouTuber. And I'd never heard of this term before or the concept of a commonplace book. But after I watched that video, I knew that it was exactly what I needed to solve my issue. So I've worked in the IT industry for 20 years. I graduated in the early 2000s and grew up obviously in the 80s and 90s, and computers really meant doing assignments on Microsoft Word, submitting essays and dissertations in Word, and then going into the workplace and using those tools. So I basically only used paper, when I was working for just taking notes in meetings, etc. But inevitably used to fall by the wayside, and really I only used to revert when I was working in a full-time job. I used to revert to notes really that was stored in Word documents on my laptop, or a few bits and pieces in the CRM system. And it was never really a system that worked well, and I could never really solve it, to be honest, but I just carried on as is. And obviously, fast forward, into the 2010s, or late 2010s especially, started experimenting with things like Evernote, then using Google Docs, even tried Notion for a bit, and nothing really worked for me. And then I sort of moved to Apple Notes, and again, I found that although they're all great tools for recording information, absolutely no doubt about that, you can use tagging and all sorts, I just found that I'd never really go back to Notes, and when I wanted to find something quickly, I could never really do it, because the way you store things and tag them is not necessarily the same as your future self will be searching for them. And I know there's a classic thing that people say, well, try and figure out what you'll search for in the future. And yeah, that helps a little bit, but sometimes it's not the perfect solution either, to be honest. I find search tools, even in Apple Notes, can sometimes miss things. Anyway, cut a long story short, after I saw that video on commonplace books, I thought I'm going to give it a try. And 6 months later, I'm pleased to report that it's working very well for me. So I wanted to just briefly show you how I use it. I mean, I take book notes and things that I learn every day in a notebook, and I really figured out through the bullet journaling method the one piece of thing that was missing for me, where notebooks never really used to work, and that was to have page numbers. And this is a Moleskine notebook, so you have to write them manually, but if you bought a Leuchtturm or other notebooks, they have page numbers printed. So the key thing for me was missing, was being able to find this information again quickly, because rummaging through notebooks is just as bad as trying to find things in Apple Notes, which you don't know quite what to search for. So the bullet journaling method had indexing as a key part of the system, and I love that, and that worked really well for me. So these happen to be my book notes, which I'm writing in blue ink, and these are all consolidated notes in various key topics, and I can find something really quickly now. So this is my commonplace book, so where I'm learning new things. If I read blog posts or watch YouTube videos that I learn something from that I want to implement, then it goes in here and the page number is referenced. So that's that for this book. Now, what I do for a living involves me looking at a lot of information around stock prices and analyzing companies. So I have a specific book for that, and I take all my notes in here. Stocks, indices, investing, it's all here. This one's a little bit older, and I actually haven't created an index page for it yet, but I will be doing that for this one. Now, the other benefit of this method is something I found when I was reading the book called Limitless by Jim Quick. And one of the key things that he talks about in the book in terms of learning more effectively and remembering more is, in order to remember things, you need to reread or rewatch, if it's a YouTube video or whatever, many times. And he ideally gives the frequency, which is reread something once or twice a day after you've written it for the first time, then read it and review it once a week, and then do it monthly. And after you've repeatedly put information into your brain that way multiple times, then it will start to stick. Now, the most important way to get information to stick is as soon as you've learned something, implement it, or teach it to somebody. And that's fine, but you don't necessarily need to do that for everything. So I found that you can easily flick through any topic in this book and quickly refresh your memory with it. Whereas I find with things like Apple Notes and Google Notes, Google Docs, for example, things like that, you can't really quickly open something and just stumble across a page from a year or two ago or 6 months ago or last week. This system is also good for serendipity. You might come across something that you need right now and you didn't even know it was there. And I actually had this happen to me last week when I was going through some really old notes through my Apple Notes and actually writing them down. And I actually found something from a seminar that I attended in 2015 that I needed right now in 2025. And had I not gone through this process, I wouldn't have found that note. So that's just one example of how it works really well for me. So I just wanted to share that. If you've never heard of Commonplace books, I'd recommend Carl Pauline's video. You should see it on screen now, and I'll put the link in the description as well. But this is how I use it. It'd be good to understand how you use it and how it's working for you. Cheers.